Shalom. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing this truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is Shabai from GMS, the Denver camp. And through the Spirit, I'm going to read Romans, the 12th chapter, and pull out precepts, according to the Spirit. So, without further ado, let me see. Let's start at the top. It says, I beseech you, therefore, by the mercies of the Most High, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service. Okay? So, beseech, that's another word for urge. And basically, Paul, he's urging the Israelites, we present ourselves a living sacrifice, holy, meaning separate, and this is what is acceptable to the Most High, and it's our reasonable service. When you go in that word reasonable, let me get it real quick. Let's see. Oops. Let me see what that word reasonable. Logikos, like logical. It's low. Let me see. Here it is in the Greek.
Strong's G 3050.
Logikos, but it's like logical or logic. That's where you get the word logic from, right? So let's get a little deeper into this meaning. It says, pertaining to speech or speaking, spiritual, pertaining to the soul, agreeable to reason, following reason, reasonable, logical. You see that? Just like I said, logical. So it's something, in other words, that we can do. It's not something it's impossible for us to do. It's reasonable. If you have a mouth to speak, you have legs to walk, you have you have gas money to take your ass to camp. This is all reasonable, logical things to do. And why is it logical? Because, we're working towards salvation. So I think, don't you think that's reasonable for you to go, be in a camp sincerely? Because the logic is we're going to, we're doing this for our own salvation. You see? So let's keep reading verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And the renewing of your mind, what is that? That ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of the Heavenly Father. So we renew our minds by receiving this knowledge, by receiving this truth. And we know that the 2/3, they're unable to do this. It's not a reasonable thing for the 2/3 to do this. And that's how you discern, by the Spirit. If you're teaching them and you're showing them the scripture and you're reading it out loud and you're breaking it down for them and they're still not getting it, well, guess what? It's not a reasonable thing for them. Move on from them. It's not, the 2/3, they don't have the capacity or the ability or the Most High hasn't given them the ability to renew their mind. Okay, so they're going to stay in darkness. Okay, verse 3, for I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as the Most High hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. So every man has a measure of faith. Okay, so don't try to be Apostle Tahar. Don't try to be Apostle Gabar. Don't try to be Apostle Aramlab. Don't try to be Apostle Rakar. Stay in your lot. Go according to the measure of faith that you've been given. You know, don't try to compare yourself to any of the elders, you know, or the up and coming elders. You know, everybody has a different measure of faith. Go according to the measure of faith that Yahweh Bashem Yahushai has given you, you know, lest you burn yourself out, you know, or lest this is a vexation of spirit, you know, trying to keep up with, you know, elders, or trying to go, go at your pace, which, you know, we know the pace that basically the standard, you know, the expectation the elders have set, one lesson per day, right? I just heard Elder Apostle Tahar say that today on his street ministry. So, you know, I'm gonna leave it at that. It's one lesson per day, you know. That's what we should be doing, you know, being diligent. All right. But, you know, the elders, sometimes the spirit will jump on them. You'll see the elders do 2-3 videos a day, you know. You know, if you're not that dude, hey, just relax. Just do that one lesson a day that you know, at this time is required of us. But don't burn yourself out, because you're not Apostle Tahar. You're not Apostle Gabar. You're not Apostle Aramlab. You're not Apostle Rakar. You're not one of the top elders in Israel, you know. So just go into according to your measure of faith that you've been given. And that don't mean cut corners and don't do any lessons. No, you got to be diligent. Verse 4, for as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, so we, being many, are one in body in Hamashiach, and everyone's members one of another. Right, we're all one body in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, but we all have a different office, you know, meaning brothers, you know, different gifts, you know. Well, as I keep reading, it goes into that. It says, having them gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us. Whether prophecy, let us prophesy according to the proportion of faith. There it is, you know. Don't put a burden on yourself, you know, trying to do 3 videos because you see Apostle Gabar do 3 videos in one day, or Apostle Tahar, he's doing, you know, his different series lately that he's been doing, you know, History Saturdays, Etymology Mondays, things like that. Don't think, okay, now I'm going to start doing all History Saturday and Etymology Monday to keep up with the elders. No, stay in your lot. Stay according to your measure of faith. Now, is it wrong to do a lesson here and there on history, or a lesson here and there on etymology? No, but don't, like I say, don't try to do more than don't try to be somebody who you're not, you know. Just stay in your lot, stay in your office, stay in your lane, and just do the work according to the measure of faith you've been given. All right, don't feel pressure because you didn't do a Etymology Monday video, you know. You know, yes, we are one body, but the elders have been set up as elders for a reason, you know. And don't be parrots, you know. We don't want to be parrots in this thing of ours, you know. Move with the Spirit. Move with the measure of faith that the Most High has given you, all right. Verse 7. Or ministry, the proportion of faith, or ministry, let us wait on our ministering, or he that teacheth on teaching, or he that exhorteth on exhortation. He that giveth, let him do it with simplicity. He that ruleth with diligence. He that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. Right? So there's a specific way to do things too, you know? Like when you teach, you don't need to go use $1 million words, you know, that brothers can't even understand, you know, trying to show off your vocabulary and shit like that. No, teach with simplicity. Teach with where your common brother is going to understand, he's going to be edified, right? It's almost like a foreign language when you try to, you know, speak out of your means, or you're trying to use these, like I say, $1 million words that, no, your brothers got to go look up what you're saying, because you're using these big ass words, or words that, you know, common brothers don't understand. Now it's okay to have a vocabulary, you know. Matter of fact, I was watching I was watching this old ass clip on David Letterman, and he had Mr. T on there, and Mr. T was all grumpy and shit, right? I don't know if he really was or if he was just acting, but he was being pretty rude, and I liked it, right? Because he was being rude to David Letterman, but you know, he was giving Judah, he was, that spirit of Judah was on him, and David Letterman had said a word, you know, that I think he said like exasperated or something. He was asking him if he was exasperated or that's what I'm saying. It was such a big word I can't even remember it, right? But Mr. T called him out on it. He's like, "Hey man, why? You know, I'm a street guy. Don't be using them big ass words. You know, telling me just make it simple. You know." And but Mr. T was giving him the business like the whole interview. And you brothers can pull it up. It was kind of funny to watch it. But it was Mr. T and David Letterman. You know, and but that's the thing. You know, you don't need to use $1 million words. Just keep this thing simple. Right, it tells you that in Habakkuk 2:2. It says, "And Yahweh answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it." You see? So you make it plain, like as in plain and simple. You know, when you teach, make it plain and simple. You don't have to go into, you know, reach into the depths of your vocabulary and use $1 million words and, you know, try and show out and show off just because you know, you want to act like you're so educated, or you act like you're so knowledgeable, or you act like you're so wise. No, just make this thing plain and simple. Do this thing with simplicity, right? KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, right? That's that acronym, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, right? And I'm not saying brothers are stupid, but I'm just saying, you know, when you're doing the lessons, you know, just remember, Jacob is a plain man, right? Let's get that real quick. Genesis 25. Let me see. Esau, he's the one who has to act like he got to show out, act like he has to be something bigger than he really is, right? Okay, here it is right here. "And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter and a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents." See? So you gotta understand, Jake is a plain, that's our history, that's our characteristic. We're plain men, man. You know, Esau gonna be the one calling his boys up, let's go hunt some elk, let's go do this, let's go do that, let's go jump off a cliff, you know, let's go jump out of an airplane. Jake is plain, man. We just want to chill. When Jake is in their free time, we might play some video games. We might just be chilling at the crib, you know, making up some food, some barbecue, some whatever it is, some green chili with chicken. Ain't no pork going in our green chili no more. But you see, we're plain men. We're not like, you know, extra difficult or extra complicated, you know. So keep it simple for Jake, man. Let's go back to Romans 12 and let's see, 9. It says, "Let love be without dissimulation, abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love and honor, preferring one another. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai." Right? And not slothful, just because we're plain men and you know, doesn't mean we're slothful in our business. No, what is our business? What is our office? It's this ministry. This is our business, right? Yahweh Shai had said that. He said that to his parents when they were looking for him, when he was 12 years old. All right, let's get that real quick. To prove this is what's our business. Our business is this ministry. Our business is this truth. All right, let's go to Luke 2 and it says they were looking for his mother and his father were looking for him, right? Luke 2 and 48, it says, and he was 12 years old, which he was a man at that point, right? Because in our culture, in our history, in our, heritage, 12 years old is your coming of age. You're a man. Basically when you start puberty, and whatnot. Luke 2 and 48, it says, and when they saw him, they were amazed, and his mother said unto him, Son, why hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. They were sad because they didn't know where he was. They couldn't find him for a moment, right? And he says, and he said unto them, this Yahweh Shai speaking as a 12-year-old, how is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my father's business? And they understood not the saying which he spake unto them. Right. And that's how our families are. They don't, when you first come into this knowledge and this truth, they don't understand, like, oh, why are you going to miss my my birthday? Why are you going to miss my quinceañera? Why are you going to miss my whatever it is? I can't make it. I got camp that day. Right? Because they don't understand. This is our business. When you go to work, that's a business. When you do the work of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, it's a business. The ministry is our business, right? You go to work for a business and you make, carnal money, right, to pay your bills and shit, to get by in Babylon. Well, we're doing the work in making spiritual investment, in the kingdom, That's what we're doing. We're investing for our salvation. We're investing for the kingdom. This is our business. You're self-employed, And who called you to do the work? Let me see if I can find something like that. Let's see what this says right here. But we've been called to do this work. And who has called us? Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Right? Let's get 1 Corinthians 9 and 14. It says, even so hath Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai ordained that they which preach the gospel shall live of the gospel. You see? So we've been ordained. We've been called to do the work. Let's see what this one says. 1 Timothy 2:7. It says, whereunto, let me see. Well, we'll start at 2 and 7 and we can leave it at that. It says, whereunto I am ordained a preacher and an apostle. I speak the truth in Hamashiach and lie not. A teacher of the Gentiles in faith and verity. Okay? So we've been ordained. We've been hired. Let me see what that word, true principle of belief, especially one of fundamental importance. Right? So that's what it is. This is our business. We've been ordained by the Heavenly Father. Let me see. Let's see if I can find another one before I move on. Okay. Let's get this. Micah 3:11, it says, the heads thereof judge for reward, the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai and say, is not Yahweh among us? None evil can come upon us. Therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. And the plowed represents work. So this is our work. This is our business. But it's talking about in the beginning in 11 that I read, basically talking about the false prophets. They teach for hire, but the false prophets like Bishop Nate and them, they're getting paid, right? We're not getting paid. The true prophets don't get paid for this. But we are hired. We're ordained, appointed by the Most High, by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai. We are appointed and ordained to do the work, but we don't get, carnal wages. So anyway, let's go back to Romans. Romans 12. But we're not to be slothful in this business, right? You got to be diligent. It says, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer. Right, so when you go through some hard times, or you go through some bumps on the road, guess what? You got to be patient, because part of being in this ministry, part of, even in Esau's world, when you're working, sometimes you got to suffer, right? Sometimes, especially if you're like a man, you do manual labor, you might hurt your back, or you fucking sweating your ass off because you're working yourself, working so hard, you may get injured, but you got to be patient. Suffer in the tribulation. You're going to suffer. We already know that. But it says continuing instant in prayer, distributing to the necessity of the saints given to hospitality. Right. Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Rejoice when dealing with the brotherhood, because we damn sure curse the 2/3 in the heathen, but if it's a brother, and you're, whatever, you have you're at odds with a brother, or you have some type of issue with the brother, well, you don't go and curse the brother, the ones who are like-minded, you talk it out like men. Verse 15, rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. And that's what we do with the brotherhood. We see the chariots in the sky together, we start rejoicing, right? We see fucking oppression, we see, things that vex us in the spirit, we weep with them that weep. We mourn together. We're the ones sighing and crying in the streets, Be of the same mind one toward another, mind not high things, but condensed to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Right? And so we're at in the low estate right now because we're not in the kingdom. We're going through the tribulation. We're mocked, we're scoffed. We deal with these things together as brothers in the ministry. That's why it's about exhortation, about lifting each other up, It even says in the scriptures, a brother is made for adversity. Brother is born for adversity. Yeah, that was... Watch, let's go Proverbs 17:17. It says, a friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. You're going through some shit, you're going through some tribulation, you're going through the fire, don't just hold it in, voice it to the brotherhood, Maybe you need a little bread or money or whatever. Hey, brothers will hook you up, brothers get together, Maybe you need something. Don't be so prideful that you can't ask your own brothers for help. Romans 12. 17. Repents to no man evil for evil, provide things honest in the sight of all men. Right, and we're not in the time to an eye for an eye, right? Yahweh Bashim, that's why it says vengeance is Yahweh's. Vengeance is Yahweh Bashim Yahushai's, And when we get them spiritual powers, then we're going to be joint heirs. But for now, we just have to deal with certain things. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. So it says, if it's possible to be in peace, just be in peace. We're not in the time of vengeance. It's not ours right now. It's not time. We can't carry out the laws right now. We can't go around, putting homosexuals to death. That's in the law. Is that wise to do that right now? No. You'll go to prison, right? And if you're in prison, when they mandate that micro C-hip, those are going to be some of the first people that get that device put in them. You get incarcerated, you fucked around, you try to take vengeance when it's not the time, whether it be whatever. You get yourself caught up. Hey, guess what? It's not the time. Right? And we can get that right now, and it's coming up. It's right here. That's the spirit. I didn't even know I was coming up on that, and it's right the next verse. Call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yoshai. I'm going to read it. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith Yahweh Bashim Yoshai. See? That's why we got to be patient. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Right? Patience goes into suffering, like I've been saying. So you got to suffer sometimes. Sometimes you just got to bite your tongue. Sometimes you just got to, turn the other cheek. I know this place gets vexing. I know this place gets, sometimes you get frustrated when you see wickedness and you see things, you see the state of our people. But we're in a time of suffering, man. We're not in the time of vengeance. Let's keep reading. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so thing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, and overcome evil with good. But overcome evil with good. Right? And it don't mean you go out there and just start, doing all these nice things for Esau Edom. No, it really, you just got to turn the other cheek, bite the tongue sometimes. It's not the time of vengeance. That's why it's called patience. When we're given that green light, when we become, those fishers turn to hunters, that's a different story. But right now, we're not in that time. We got to move, what does it say? Wise as serpents, harmless as doves. All right? Move with wisdom. Can't act on emotions, We already know the prophecies. We know the scriptures. We know what we got to do. We know we have to endure. There's certain things you just got to endure, man. Jeremiah 16:16, it says, behold, I will send for many fishers. This is what the time we're in. We're in the time to be fishing for the elect. Saith Yahweh, saith Yahweh, and they shall fish them. And after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. So we're not in the time of being hunters. We're not in the time of being, taking vengeance. No, that's Yahweh Bashim Yahushai's place. That's not our place right now. All our places right now is to be teaching this truth, teaching this gospel, teaching these scriptures, showing our people their transgressions, until we get that green light, until we get the time has come, you don't have spiritual powers right now, I mean, we do, but it's on a low level, and it's not a level where we can go take on the military or take on, Esau's, any of his police men or any of his military or any, what I'm saying? This is not the time. All we're doing right now, and it's wise for you to do this, is just teach. We're not hunters yet. We're still fishers. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and close out on that. That was that last verse in Romans 12. I want to give all the praise, all the glory, all the honor unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me the truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akim who are pushing the truth with sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom to the elect. Shalom.